Welcome to Today in Prophecy, daily news in 15 minutes or less, news from the perspective of the Bible. Well, China says it's ready for war with America. And the CIA director says the U.S. has paused intelligence support to Ukraine. And the Pope says, I ain't ready to die. Very interesting world we live in. Let's start here with China. China says it's ready for war with America. Beijing, boosts defense spending by 7.2% and warns Washington that it's prepared to fight until the end. All right, let's think of this. We have these threats from China. They're always out there. We do know that Jesus himself said, when you look at the Bible, he said there will be wars and rumors of war. And then he also said this. He says, but the end has not yet come. In other words, as he continues to talk, you're able to determine it's not until the time of the end when everything escalates to a point where it never was before, at a time when Israel is a nation again. Okay, with that, we see this constant threat of wars and rumors of wars. They're definitely escalating. Now, when you look at the threat of a war, it could be something that will affect the entire globe. In fact, you have annihilation of countries now, where if you go back 100 years, you didn't have that possibility. Now you actually have the annihilation of countries. So the threat of wars and rumors of wars is much greater than ever before. It's increasing in frequency and intensity, just as the Bible says. But what about China? What's China's position in the last days? And what's America's position in the last days for that matter? Well, let me work through a few things, because I do not believe China is a player in the last days. And there's many people out there that say, well, China's going to have an army, of 200 million men. During the tribulation period, they're going to come up over a dried up Euphrates River. Why do they say that, and why do I disagree? I'll show you. In Revelation chapter 16, the Bible says, and this is during the bowl judgment, so it's at the end of the tribulation period, the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. Remember that. And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, that would be Satan, out of the mouth of the beast, that would be Antichrist, out of the mouth of the false prophet. So three of them. And for they are spirits of demons performing signs which go out to the kings of the earth, out to the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. And then verse 16 says, and they gathered them together to the place called in Hebrew Armageddon. So that's where we get the term Armageddon from. Your movies that are made about it and so forth. You have the demons calling the armies of the earth to come together. They're enticing them to come together at this great day of battle in the Jezreel Valley, or Megiddo, here, Armageddon or Armageddon. Okay, it says here, you look at it in verse 12, it'll be preparing the way of the kings of the east. The river Euphrates is dried up. That's a key to understand what's happening and what's not happening. So the term for kings of the east, first of all, note it is plural. It's not the king of the east. And also, east is referring to the rising sun. So no matter where you are when you look east, you're looking toward the rising sun. It's talking here about the Euphrates River. So what we are able to determine from the Bible, when you're talking east, you simply mean east of Israel or east of the Jordan River. You could mean east of the Euphrates River, as it is here. But you start with Jerusalem, and from there you go east. Very specific, chapter 16, book of Revelation, east of the Euphrates River. It's not pointing all the way to Japan or China or something like that. Okay, keep that in mind. Kings from the east, or kings of the east, plural. There's a number of them coming from where? East of the Euphrates River. That much we know. Okay, now people have said, well, this is clearly China, because China could have an army of 200 million men. Okay, well, where does the 200 million come from? With people who have taught for years that China will have an army of 200 million men. It comes from Revelation chapter 9 during the trumpet judgments, two different sets of judgments. Chapter 16 is the bowl judgments. Chapter 9 is the trumpet judgments, separated by time, separated by judgments. Okay, chapter 9, it says this, then the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. So the four angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. And then he goes on, John goes on, talks about what he sees, these horsemen, these 200 million. Okay, here's the deal. These four angels are bound up at the river Euphrates. The only thing that connects chapter 9 and chapter 16 together is the word Euphrates. But these are two different judgments. One of them, chapter 16, you have kings, not demons, not fallen angels. You have kings from the east of the Euphrates River, that come up over the dried up Euphrates River. That is still going to happen in the future. You also have this, where these demons are released here, these fallen angels, whichever one you want to call them. They're going to come up from the Euphrates River, not a dried up Euphrates River. They are spirit beings. They're demonic in nature. They come up from the Euphrates River, not kings coming over the dried up Euphrates River. And again, they are two different judgments, trumpet judgments and bowl judgments. Nowhere in chapter 9 does it even allude to it being an army of 200 million men that are coming from China. It's horsemen, an army of 200 million. It says, the horsemen who was 200 million, I heard the number of them, and I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, sulfur, yellow. Heads of the horses were like the heads of lions. Out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and brimstone. This is talking about demons. It clearly says these creatures that are bound up at the Euphrates are released. And then out of this comes these 200 million creatures with fire that comes out of their mouth. Now, people have likened this to, well, tanks with fire coming out, or helicopters with fire coming out, or whatever it is. There aren't 200 million tanks and helicopters in the entire world. All the armies of the world, nowhere even near that. But there's so many things that don't connect. What the Bible does not say is that China is going to be a big-time player in the tribulation period. The Bible does not say that. Things have been taken out of context for a number of years that has placed China into this 200 million mix when it is clearly not there for people who would actually study and see what it says. Okay, that being said, I don't believe China is a big-time player other than what's happening right now. And the same with America. I have some friends of mine, very good friends, that place America in the tribulation period. In fact, I have a dear friend who says America is the little horn of Daniel chapter 7 that's going to rise up in the last days. I don't believe that. I don't believe that America is going to be this big player. I don't believe China is going to be this big player based upon what I see the Bible has to say. I believe America is looking at its end. I don't know how much longer. I am hopeful that America will not have its end until after the rapture of the church, and that will collapse America, which will also enable Europe to usher in their army that they want to usher in. And as we mentioned last couple of days on Today in Prophecy, the European Union is looking for a leader to lead the Western world, the free world, as they call it. They don't want Trump. They have their own leader in mind. Who will that be? It's going to rise up. There's going to be 10 kings that are coming. Talked about that with Mondo Gonzalez yesterday. And then out of this, they're going to appoint a leader to them. They're going to give their power and authority to the beast. Revelation chapter 17 and also Daniel chapter 7, the little horn rises up from among the 10. So that is all coming. America and China are not big players. Neither of them are big players in the tribulation period. And I think it is just a short time for both of us. Given that, could it be, as China says, is ready for a war with America? Will America and China, will they X each other out? Knock each other out? Don't know. But either way, everything is shaping up to the removal of America and China from being global superpowers. Also, I read an article not too long ago, shared it with you. It's now projected with the possibility that China by 2030 could have 300 million Christians in their underground church. That is an unbelievable number. Can you imagine the rapture? What would happen to America and China? A complete collapse, that alone would eliminate them, but give rise to Europe and the other end-time players, Russia, Iran, Turkey, parts of Africa, all of the nations surrounding Israel, and of course Israel itself. So I look at this and I look at where America and China are in Bible prophecy. I don't see it. I do not see China having a 200 million man army. The context of both chapter 9 and chapter 16 are entirely different. The only word that is the same in both of them is the mention of the Euphrates River. Nothing else. Nothing else is the same. As far as kings from the east go, it just means kings from east of the Euphrates River. That's all that means. You can read more into it. Doesn't mean China won't have some soldiers left after their country has been decimated. They might have some soldiers in there, but it doesn't mean China has a 200 million man army. All right, moving on. Trump officials say U.S. has paused intelligence sharing with Ukraine, but signal it may not last long after fiery meeting. Interesting. What in the world is going on? Of course, Zelensky wrote a letter to Trump, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with some regrets. I don't know if he ever actually apologized. News goes back and forth on that. Zelensky, that's regarding the meeting he had with Trump. Man, do we have interesting days. The Trump administration appears to have ordered at least a partial halt to the crucial intelligence that the U.S. shares with Ukraine to defend itself against the Russian invasion, according to a U.S. military official and public remarks made by top Trump administrative officials. Statements from National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and CIA Director John Ratcliffe on Wednesday morning indicated that a pause in intelligence sharing is in place, but the extent of the limitations was not clear. Both officials also suggested that the pause may be short-lived if the president can be satisfied that Ukraine has taken steps toward negotiations to end the war, a controversial effort that appeared to be derailed after the fiery meeting with Trump and Vance and Zelensky. But as I mentioned, Zelensky did have some type of letter of regret. I don't know all of the details of it. Some of my friends said they've read the whole thing. I don't know. But regardless, we see everything coming to a head. We can tell when you look at the political alignments, those who are supporting Zelensky, it's very clear. Here in the United States, you have people who want the destruction of America. They're communists. They're supporters of all of the money that Doge has exposed. They're Marxists. Very clear, if you watched the Trump speech last night, you could see the great divide that America is in. Just unbelievable. In fact, I'm going to deal with this somewhat on You Can't Make This Up tomorrow. But we look at these different dynamics, and you look at the political proponents of Zelensky in Europe, and you realize, wait a minute, the ones in America and the ones in Europe that support Zelensky, they're all a bunch of communists. That's what they want. They want socialism. They want to control the masses. They want World War III. So as you look at this, watching what is going on, we'll see how it all goes. Well, I don't want to miss this article, this report. The Pope addresses resignation rumors amid health crisis as cardinals circle to plot church's future after his death. Basically, the Pope is saying, I don't want to die. Hey, I don't know if you caught this the other day, where the Pope was screaming, get the evil, appears to be talking about demons, get them away from me, get them away from me, as he's on his deathbed. But you'll look at this, and it is very interesting. You have all of this talk about the Pope dying, and the Pope's going, they're talking about me dying, and I ain't seen evil spirits. I'm not going to die yet. You guys can't get rid of me yet. But all of this, man, what an interesting world we live in. You got to wonder what's going to be coming next. I'm telling you, 2025 is full of all kinds of surprises. Listen, that's all of the time that we have here today. See you tomorrow. God bless.